The Firebat Servants. Once again, these guys didn't do too much damage. It will be interesting, though, with all the buffs that they gave the damaging witch powers, if you're going to be able to make a build around them. I didn't have a whole lot of time on the PTR to test exactly what was scaling and what wasn't scaling with the witch powers. I'm assuming everything. So 20% total fire damage over one attack. And I'm assuming that's weapon damage. Not the craziest, but if you're already doing something, like you're playing like a Thorns Barbarian, and you're wearing the helm that causes your direct damage to do fire and a bonus fire damage, or maybe even a Sorceress, that might actually be pretty good. This one will be kind of interesting for Bone Spirit, because you'll be able to do this every time you cast a Bone Spirit. The shadow damage, will we be able to scale it? Will that be, like a dedicated build path? 400% is a very high multiplier on something that you can trigger every cast a second. I think you could actually get up to like 3 casts per second if you have enough attack speed. Oh, and then the damage is going to stack up to 390%. Of that 400, that is actually going to be pretty big. There might be a build around Abyssal Resonance for the Necromancer. So look out for that, guys. Not too sure how this will work out. If you end up doing like a witch power build, then this might be pretty interesting. Really depends on what the shadow damage is, because this is a massive effect. 5 times. And AoE. So this will be interesting. Sort of a like AoE. I don't know if you guys ever played Flash Fire Wizard, but this will be akin to something similar to that and probably around the same power. Just a generalized damage buff to all monsters once you hit rank 10. This will actually be really good, because there is a way to make your skills get the Eldritch tag. So if you're running both of those, they'll synergize with each other to give you a damage boost overall. Yeah. So for the classes that have trouble putting vulnerable up, this will be useful. A lot of classes have their vulnerable application already figured out. This will be interesting. This is a nice utility tool. So we got a lucky hit to apply Hexaflames, and it's just a 40% damage, which is really low. I'm assuming that is, the same as skill damage. I don't know who would use this unless this 40% stacks up, so it's like 40, 80, 120, etc. That would be interesting if this was like a stacking effect. If it is not a stacking effect, I can't really see too many people using it. This one they were showing off a lot, the Doom Orb. Having it do flat damage is a little odd. when it has a 400% value here, which is probably bigger than that. But, once again, we have a lot of things that are synergizing with each other and empowering witch powers, and then, the question is, like, are you already playing a build, like a sorceress or a barbarian or something, where that damage is already being multiplied by multiple sources? So this is another candidate for maybe a dedicated witch power build. But once again, I don't really see these scaling that high. Probably like Pit tier 90, but it might do Torment 4 fine. And for leveling, they might be really good. This one is interesting. After Pit tier 100, the damage that you take in the pit, like your survivability, kind of flatlines. So I don't really understand how this is going to scale. I feel like it's going to, maybe on certain bosses, in certain monster types, it'll be more effective. I don't think this is going to be very good. When I initially saw this, I thought it'd be better for like a Thorns build, but looking at it now and thinking about it objectively, I can't really see how this scales. I mean, I say that now and someone will probably break it, but we'll just have to see. Damage done by your witch effects afflicts enemies with Hexa Shattering, causing them to deal X reduced damage. This will be good for leveling. I don't think anyone's going to care about the Head Rotten passive unless it turns into an all monsters kind of deal. The damage reduction is super nice for builds that just don't have it. Like you just want to put in more damage and you need the DR. This will be a good source. So I think it'll be useful in that regard. I don't think the rank 8 will be anything meaningful. This one's kind of interesting. That does not work on bosses, just kind of leaves it as a dead slot effect. I don't think anyone will use this. Alright, so it applies, and then it generates an aura, which is probably like close range to the afflicted monster. And then for each enemy inside that range, you get 3 resource per second, which is wild. This will be good in certain circumstances. There are some necro builds I can think of. Like, I mean, you also have like Aspect of Great Feast. This could take care of that. It probably pretty good too on some basic skill builds where you are spending a lot of resource on every auto. Kind of cool. This is sort of like a can't be killed in X window type of ability. Might be used at higher pits, just, probably not. But, when you have the damage reduction, you'll probably just take that. It might save you, though, if you have some stacks on you and you were just going to die anyways. So, I could potentially see this being used. This is wild. This is so good. Yeah, there's a lot of builds in the game now that just get barrier. So if this is just adding a barrier and it reflects projectiles, and Anyone who's died to a skeletal bowman, you know, this is for you. This right here. People will use this just because it's a little frog pet. I will also be guilty of probably using this because it's a little frog pet. That is cute. This makes me wish we had a witch doctor in the game. That's really good. Pull enemies toward itself and taunt. This is actually going to give a ton of survival for people who don't play Barbarian or Necromancer and aren't accustomed to taunt effects. Taunting can take so much damage off you. It is actually a wonderful mechanic. So this is just straight damage. This will actually free up some stats on gear. You'll be able to run other affixes on your gear slots. Because a lot of time you're hitting a breakpoint for like a legendary node or something. Or you might just take it to hit a ridiculous amount of primary stat. You know? It's just damage. This is going to be really good. A lot of people are going to be using this. This will be good on blood builds, and dealing with like being CC'd. I wonder if this includes the stacks, the amping damage stacks you get in pits. That would be really, really good. Like the Lilith fight, pushing high pits. I think people will use this. This will be interesting, you know, going back to if we have like a stacking damage type, where we can just ramp up really, really quickly with lucky hit chance or, you know, any of the other effects like constant burning damage from the witch powers. There'll probably be a build that uses DK augmentation, especially with the legendary gem that increases dot damage by 50%. Well, it decreases the time it takes for your dots to affect something, so they tick faster, but that's still 50% damage. Don't know what the bonus damage is, but this right here, 100% crit. And it's every 15 seconds, so like, companions for Druid with the Petrify glyph, if that counts, they'll just have permanent crit without needing to run like cooldown reduction or anything to be able to cast Petrify. Same with the minions. I think you'll be able to Soul Rift or you'll be able to Army of the Dead like in that 15-second window off cooldown. Companions are looking extraordinarily strong this next season. For anyone who likes Druid and likes companion Druids and running around with a bunch of werewolf wolves, yeah, this is your season, dude. It's probably going to do, like, at least pit 115 plus. This is kind of interesting. Back to the whole, like, making a build centered around witch powers. I think this will be used. The healing is nice for some builds. Specifically, I mean, I play Necromancer, so the healing will be really good for like Bone Spear, which is going to use max health on cast. Will you need it is like a different question, though. This is kind of cool. Another healing, sustain. I'm not entirely sure that it's needed, but I think this might be used. It's damage and healing, and every 2 seconds is a lot better than 5 seconds. I don't even know why they put 5 seconds originally. This one is kind of cool for companions and minions because it's giving you a lot of the attack speed that you would, necessarily put on gear. So not only are we getting lucky hit chance for cooldown reduction on the Necromancer, we're getting attack speed, so we don't need to run attack speed rolls on our gear. And we're also going to have 100% crit chance. This is a very strong minion season. Very, very good power for those specs specifically. And then also, not having to run attack speed on gear means you get to take main stat, defensives, more damage. You just get to swap it out. So I think this is going to be really good. Back to the whole, your witch powers dealing damage, this sort of stuff. I'm not entirely sure who's going to be using this. Anyone who needs crit chance, who can't, cap easily. Necromancer will not use this. There isn't ever going to be a time where you're not crit capped for free, basically. %50 damage for any build that crits, which is basically every build in the game that isn't Thorns. Yeah, this is probably going to be used by everybody. Flavor. I don't think there's too many builds that are going to need to use this, but for builds that want to use this is going to be really cool. It really makes me wish that we had Witch Doctor in the game. So we get better bounties from the Tree Whispers. It's pretty cool. So this is going to be awesome for starting out this season because you're going to be able to do the Whispers and get these ancestral caches, and that is going to steamroll your ability to gear early on. When they were talking about making it easier for you to start your power creep, I think this is what they meant. That is very cool. This is sort of like the purple Helltide of this season. I feel like that's not doing it justice. I really, really like the art. Like this is so cool. You got the little bug coming out of the back. It's like a zombie corpse with a bloated head. Like, someone sat down and, sketched this all out, made concept art, and then they took the time to put it into the game and animate it and everything. And, for anyone who, does art and 3D modeling and all that, that's pretty big. I'm glad to see, it's not entirely like a new event, but they took the time and investment to actually give us something like new monster types to fight, and I appreciate that. That's above and beyond for the season. So I'm not entirely sure on the potency, but these gems are going to increase your witch power. So if you're going for a build around witch powers, you're going to be, doing things like this. And I'm pretty sure there's one that turns your powers into every type, so you'll be able to stack some of these. Yeah, that's kind of a good nerf. 15% down from 40 on the overpower makes sense. I'm not entirely, I'm not sure what potency is doing here. This is really good for builds that will need crit. Not a lot of builds need to hit the crit cap. Well, not a lot of builds need help hitting the crit cap. This is what I was talking about, where the skill becomes Eldritch Tag. So you have these things, right? Like your non-unique Eldritch Witch powers. That's not working. I wonder if it does count it as a witch power. If not, you do gain synergies for the Eldritch Tag in other ways. But this will be useful for core skills, especially on Necromancer. Back to the whole, just like 40% more damage on your witch powers. There's a lot of ultimate skills that are going to be used this season. This one is going to be really good. They're going to gain the Grimoire tag and 10% more damage. Will this be better than other options? I'm kind of wondering. It depends what you gain specifically by having it gain this tag, because there's probably another jewel you'll be able to run that gives you more damage than this. I can't see this as being too good for Necro. For other classes, 20% CDR on your defensives is really good. Yeah. This will definitely get used. Like, Sork might be able to find a way to break, like Fire Shield again or something. Lucky hit chance. There's not a lot of lucky hit chance builds in the game because they're not scaling up flat damage enough. People might use this. I don't think people will, though. I think there's so many damage options that it's kind of goofy. This one's really cool for the Spiritborn, the Barbarian, and the Necromancer. The Necromancer is having problems where they swapped everything to Summon Tag. And it just, Minions and Thorns doesn't work with Summon Tag. So, on the PTR, it just wasn't working at all. Like, you just didn't have any scaling to your Thorns damage on your minions. I did throw together a Sacrifice Minion variation, which is like maybe Pit 85 or 90. This is 30% more damage and a lot more survivability, though, for Barbarian and Spiritborn. So you could probably expect those builds which were underperforming to kind of kick back up again. This will be good for them. This is what I was talking about with the you deal damage over time 50% faster. This is essentially just 50% X, or like 1.5 times damage. This will be interesting on builds that have like a built-in execute, because it'll just increase your kill time by a lot. So your summons is counting conjurations, the servants from the witch powers, companions, and minions. And it's just 15% X damage, which is good. It's not like amazing compared to some of the other things, but it is good. People will use that if you're running, some type of summon. I don't think anyone will use this. I think this is good to prevent you from getting like one shot by something. Hardcore will use this. I take that back. People playing hardcore will probably use this. This is nuts. So 10% primary stat doesn't equate 10% damage, right? It is more damage, but it depends on how much you have already. And then the 10% max life is actually massive. For builds that overpower, this is going to be amazing. Friend of the Bog is actually going to be nuts. This is also something people are probably going to use on builds that are like stacking more damage. They're using like Shroud and Air Perdition and stuff. Um, Having an ulterior source to like stack up maximum resist all. So that'll be for each rank in your slotted unique witchcraft power. So I think they go up to 10. So it'd be 5% max resist all and 15% damage reduction, which is not bad. I mean, that's a lot of survival. And then I think for this one, at most you could get it 5 times. So it'd be 12.5 increased damage. It's good, but you know, we'll see if people use that or not. There might be a better alternative combination. This is kind of cool for Thorns builds. And that's about it as far as I can think. I think most of their builds kind of fly into a room and then screen clear. I do appreciate that they add these sort of things where you like sort of have like a way to like crowd control monsters and such. I don't think it adds a whole lot to the game, like in a grand scheme of things, when you just have builds that are in Torment for Citadel low pits that nothing survives the second that they appear. So some nice buffs to Barbarian Hoda build. Oh, I don't play Barbarian, but this is interesting. So it's going to give a way to deal that earthquake damage instantly. So if you had a way to like spawn a ton of earthquakes, I kind of see Hoda being a main spec this season. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Feral aptitude. Okay. Yeah, so they keep doing stuff like this, which, like, this is a good amulet. You got main stat, you have resist all, crit damage additive, move speed. I don't know what feral aptitude does, I don't play druid. But the 200% damage multi is nuts. But once again, you know, hopefully tomorrow we find out they do something with Locrins, because as it stands right now, there's just... I don't really know a build that takes it. And, like, I feel like we really shouldn't have uniques floating around that are not used by anyone, that are just vendor fodder. Oh, so... Hurricane build, that's kind of cool. The Wolf's Rain. I wonder if that's an anime reference. It probably is. I don't know about this. I don't know. I don't play druids, I can tell you, but that seems weak. So that's still the same. Yeah, so this is what people will be using for Bone Spear. I don't think the Blood Wave change really does anything. It just kind of adds the bone tag to it. I don't think people will use this for Blood Wave. I don't think it's good enough. This, on the other hand, is what people will be using for Blood Wave. Yeah. 70% Fortify on every cast, ult damage, damage reduction, Blood Wave cooldown, which it doesn't have a cooldown right now, really. And then you get the temper on the pants. So if you're running like Doombringer or something, this allows you to put the temper on your focus and hit that 100%, with masterworking. So these are what you're going to be using with Bloodwave. Yeah, and you're just going to be spamming these. Like, Bloodwave is going to be very good next season. It's probably going to be like one of the top performing Necromancer builds. We already have a Witch Power giving us Unhindered. Um, and we don't need more move speed on Necro. We usually are able to hit that pretty easily. No one's going to use this. Or at least I wouldn't. So, I'm not sure about this one. This is nuts. Giving Bone Spear guaranteed overpower just allows it to synergize really well. And it's not going to be a problem to keep Bone Prison up. This is going to be too strong. But I hope that they don't nerf it into the ground. I hope that mechanically it stays the same, because this is the only way Bone Spear is going to be able to be good. I just think maybe it's going to make Bone Spear too good this season. But it's been a really long time, so I say let it be good. I have no idea. I don't play Rogue. We got small buffs to it. Oh, okay. So it's leaning heavily to the Shadow Imbuement build. That might be something. This could be something. Twisting Blades are turning 25 to 45% faster. Yeah, so it looks like we got some damage over time for the Rogue. Not a whole lot going on for the Rogue, though. We'll see tomorrow during the patch notes. But lately, it doesn't feel like they've gotten the attention that they deserve, so... Oh. Super Ball Lightning. This was a really strong build, and it sort of fell by the wayside. Once again, this sort of opens up the opportunity to get this if you can't if you're using a unique weapon or something. A lot of ball lightning focus. A lot of lightning focus in general. Can be cast while moving, so they put it on a focus, and they put the chance on the unique. Okay, so I see the synergy that they're putting in there. This is going to be kind of nutty. Wow, okay, yeah. Okay, they're both focuses. Alright, so they're giving us the Arcane Orb build from Diablo 3 on 1, and they're giving us the Ball Lightning version. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Diablo 3 wizard. So this is sort of like the Tal Rasha, where they're trying to get you to use more than one element. I don't play Sorceress, so I'm not entirely sure this will be used, just because a lot of builds will not take utility. And then with the Witch powers, I mean, it's hard to say. A lot of this stuff will be quality of life after this season is over. But there's just a lot of well, this gives me damage, this gives me survival, but I don't need survival, to where, a lot of these things are going to fall by the wayside for the next 3 months. Oh, okay. Yeah, Spiritborn has a lot of like you just get everything effects, which is interesting. Um, they're going to be a lot weaker this season though. Like to the point that people are going to be angry when they go to play them. Um, but that's probably good in the just in total for the game balance. Armory was much needed. This was a much needed feature in the game. Um, I'm glad to see that they are adding the armory. There's a little bit of like quality of life things that people aren't too sure about, like if you're using the same item between builds and um, if there's going to be bugs and like how they can improve upon it. This is, you know, at the end of the day, a huge quality of life upgrade for playing through the game. And I'm going to use it. I'm definitely going to use it because I theory craft a lot of different things that use a lot of different items. And it's going to make my life incredibly easier to go and be like, I want to test Thorn's Necromancer out today, and I want to test, like minion builds out tomorrow, and then I want to, do like a BCE build or something. I think this is going to add a lot of time to people's like seasonal play, just because they'll more easily be able to go like, I'm not going to lose my progress or forget I have this item or accidentally disenchant something, and I can just pick up and play a new build. The boost for Eternal players, nothing has really changed there. They're just saying that they're going to keep it. This is really cool. I don't have to do the Golem quest again. And, um, yeah. Don't got to do the Barb quest. Don't got to do the Golem quest. This is cool. I like this. It just sort of like wasn't that big of a deal, but if I'm going to spend, like the 10 to 15 minutes to do it, and I don't want to, you know. This is also a really big change. So what they're doing is if an item were to roll 3 to 4 greater affixes, but then the keyword passive is bad, you're not using it. You know what I mean? Like Razor Plate's a good example. You have like a 4 GA Razor Plate, but then the unique passive rolls half of its value, or like the lowest possible roll. You're going to use like a 2 GA Razor Plate because it's just better. It's just more damage. And we were running into that problem with a lot of things. Like people would be like, "Oh, should I use this item just because of the GA?" And it's like, no, you shouldn't. So them making this change is going to make these good item drops feel better, which is fantastic. This one is really cool for Druid, Necromancer, and Sorcerer. Um, yeah, this one's great. It's 600 offering every 5 seconds. Like, how can you go wrong? Is it going to be better than other options for like the Sorcerer, or like the Necro's only going to be releasing it for the minion builds and probably Druid for companion? Um, Probably not, but we'll see. So it's sort of like Lith, but it's just like when you cast a non-basic. So we'll see how that shakes out. Um, yeah, I don't know how people are gonna abuse this, but this might be cool. A lot of the runes that deal damage just don't do enough damage to be useful, and that's sort of like the witch powers might not be that great because you're just not going to be able to scale the damage high enough to like be meaningful outside of like lower torments or maybe torment 4. I do like that they're keeping the mounts, like it's not like My Little Pony references, or like the immersion isn't being completely broken. This isn't traditionally what I would think. This is like a Kelpie sort of vibe that I'm getting from this, which is kind of cool. It's still like thematic and like dark fantasy. Um, so it's nice, you know. Blizzard hasn't gone full like WoW mount on us yet. And then we'll be getting resplendent sparks from the seasonal journey and the rep grind. So you'll be able to get your free mythic unique to get your build going. I do like this crow. This is a cool pet to add to the game. Once again, it's thematic. It fits the theme of the game. And then we have, the season journey armor. Looks pretty cool. Kind of a Medusa vibe. Iron Maiden Medusa. And we have Greater Collection from the Whisper Awards. People are probably going to do this one first. You're probably going to get a ton of gear from this. And then you're probably going to do the Urn of Rot after, just so that you can finish that. And then you're probably either going to dump points if you can, like, grind that out in a day and go into this one. I don't think this is the best solution to the fact that, like, the end game is endlessly farming Obdicite just to lottery system, your masterwork gear. I don't like lottery progression as a whole. I think making it easier kind of helps, but I don't think you should introduce systems where, like, luck determines whether or not you're not interacting with it anymore. It is kind of essential that they increase the drop rate of Obdicite now that they're adding the armory, because you're going to have people playing more than one build. And the grind to masterwork your gear is already insane. So even with this change, I think it's going to be impossible for someone to completely masterwork like a full armory of gear. Like, it just won't happen in a season. I don't know what the accelerated battle pass is for exactly. 20 tiers is like, I don't know. Once you get like a meta build going and you hop into like higher pits, it's like an hour, 2 hours of grinding. Is it worth whatever it is? It's like $10. Probably not. And then we have some shop stuff. And then shout out to the build sites. And then tomorrow, January 16th, we're going to have the developer update. Doesn't look like it's a campfire chat. Looks like they're just going to be going over details of this season. So I will catch you guys then. I will either be watching and then doing a video to review it, or I will be doing a live review. And until then, I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for tuning in.